Thank you for joining us. This is Beyond 50. I'm Daniel Davis. On the program today, we're going to be talking about a wonderful book, Medical to Mystical, Bring Light into Your Life. Our guest today has been doing therapies for more than 25 years as a medical doctor. She has developed a holistical medical center in Hong Kong and is a healer to many celebrities, including the Eagles, which happens to be one of my favorite groups. A Reiki master, she has studied with Deepak Chopra and Eckhart Tolle and has won several international awards for her work. She's joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program today to talk about her book, Medical to Mystical. I'd like to welcome to the Beyond 50 radio program our guest, Dr. Susan Jameson. Dr. Jameson, thank you for joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program today.
Thank you. It's nice to talk to you.
Now, tell us, why did you write your book, Medical to Mystical?
Well, to be quite honest, I've always known that I was going to end up writing books, but I didn't know what to write. And a friend of mine just said, write about what you know about, Susan. So I thought, this is simple. And I started writing about all this stuff, like there's a lot of Chinese medicine in the book, about working with your meridians, a lot about working with chakras and color. And it became chapters, and it wasn't connected in any way until I was in Egypt. And I had this experience of the light, an Abu symbol. And I thought, oh my goodness, it's all light. Everything's light. It's all connected. So I wrote the book before I realized what it was about, really. It was a process. It was a process of just discovering that everything I did was involved in light, and that what I was talking about were really tools for enlightenment. Or, I like to say, because that sounds a little bit old-fashioned, being happy and well-being, being full of joy and abundance.
What's interesting is we're in a new day and age where you see traditional Western medicine beginning to slowly embrace, if you will, alternative methods of healing and being. And they would take a look at your beliefs, for instance, and call them that, being Western trained in some of the best schools. What would your response to something like that be?
Well, I know from having gone to medical school, I mean, when I trained in Scotland and also Harvard University many years ago, we have so much training, there's so much to know about the body, to know about pharmacology, for instance, that really there's no time for much else. I think nowadays they have a little bit more training in alternative therapies, but there's just no time. So there's gynecologists in my building who say, look, I don't know anything about acupuncture, I don't want to use it. And I say to them, well, a lot of studies show that it will enhance infertility rates. So you might want to talk to a professor of Chinese medicine in the office. But people don't know what they don't know. That's the problem in life, isn't it?
That's certainly.
But now they're beginning to find out a little bit more about those things, I think.
Now, you were mentioning earlier that we are beings of light. Could you describe exactly what that is?
Well, I like to keep things really simple. I'm very simple-minded. We know through science that biology is an example. All our energy comes from food, the food we eat, and whether we eat plants as vegetarians or we eat animals, the animals eat the plants, so all our energy comes from vegetables and plants, our physical, chemical energy, and plants get all their energy from the light. Through photosynthesis, they chemically convert sunlight into carbohydrate in their leaves, which we then eat and use as fuel. So very simple biologically, our energy comes from food, doesn't it? I mean, any school child could tell you that. Physicists would say, well, we are beings of light, of tiny little molecules shifting in and out of existence in the same way that when we watch a computer screen or TV, actually it's little photons of light flickering in and out, but we think we're seeing solid pictures because our senses aren't quick enough to pick it up. We are actually watching a light picture. So in all sorts of scientific ways we're beings of light, and maybe it's time to perceive ourselves in a different way and look at that fact and think, well, if that's true, how can we use that to help ourselves? Because that's all that counts, being happier, being more full of joy and abundance and well-being. That's what people want.
Now, we're moving into a wonderful age. People seem to be thinking of 2012 as to be one of these times of doom and disaster. But it seems that even in the course through our own program here on Beyond 50 that we've talked with many mystics and shamans at the same time who seem to say something quite different, that we're actually moving into a marvelous new things. So what can people learn from ancient traditions that can awaken them to what's really going on today?
Well, I think I believe there's also, I think we're getting more enlightened, i.e. we're learning more about our true reality. In the same way that we thought, it was just wild flying a plane, 100, 200 years ago, now it's normal. And how can this help us? It's like in medicine, the more we know about ourselves, the more we can help ourselves, right? So this is just a new step. It's a new paradigm. If this is really our reality beyond the microscopic level, on the quantum level, then we can work with this knowledge. Now, indigenous societies knew how to do this. For instance, in Ayurvedic medicine, they work with the chakras, which are color centers in the body. Now, color is a facet of the light. We see color, we wear color, and we eat color. We're actually completely surrounded so much by color we don't even think about it. And that's an example, the chakra system, of working with color, which is light centers in your body. The Chinese system, which of course we work with here in Hong Kong a lot, have 12 meridians, lines of light, along which acupuncture needles are inserted. Now these two, there's been a lot of science done on the meridians, but not so much on the chakras, not so much scientific work. However, this has been around for over 2,000 years, certainly predating modern scientific theories. And I work with all these systems. So I think that's how we can work with them. We can take the best of modern medicine, but also the best of all these other things.
Now, describe for our listeners, many people have heard what a chakra is, or they might have an idea, but what specifically is a chakra and how it actually, influences our health?
Okay, well, according to the ancient Indian systems of knowledge of life is Ayurveda. That's what it means. It's not just medicine, it's a whole system of living. There are 7 main energy centers in the body, going from the tailbone up to the crown of the head. They have the same colors, these energy centers, as the colors of the rainbow, which is a very natural color spectrum, from red at the tailbone, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet at the top of the head. And it's a bit like transducers of electricity. If we think of electricity, transformers and transducers, they convert one form of energy to another. For instance, people say you could cut the energy with a knife. If you go into a room and everyone's angry or hostile, we feel this, don't we? Or we feel the peace at the top of a mountain. Or if you go home and your wife's really angry with you for some reason, you don't need to look at her face, you just know. And how do we know these things? We feel them, don't we? We feel them through various energy centers. Well, that's our belief. It's this intuition, this feeling of and processing of life. So these centers are like what are buffer between the external world situations and what we internally realize from them. And then we send the message up to our brain, and our brain figures something out based on past experience or what it thinks. Did that explain it a little bit? What the chakras might be?
That explains it perfectly, as a matter of fact. And I think what's wonderful is because through your explanation, what you were saying earlier in the program, is that we all have color. And how many times have we heard, boy, that's a very colorful individual, but you just don't think much about that statement, but that's true. And anybody who's enjoyed a really good campfire with well-seasoned old-growth wood would see the marvelous colors that actually comes in a fire, that it isn't just yellow and orange, but you'll see blues, greens, reds, just some phenomenal colors there. So we truly are, let's say, influenced by the color that the sun, I guess, gives to our health and our life.
Exactly, because we see color, which is part of the light spectrum, in the same way as X-ray and gamma, and and all these other parts of this light spectrum. They're all part of the spectrum, but we don't see the X-rays, we don't see the gamma. We're in the color spectrum. That's what's really important to us. And our little hearts radiate a lot of light, Scientists call it the biofield. 10 feet all around our body, there's this aura or by a field of light. Heart radiate huge amounts, much more than the brain, of magnetic energy, actually.
Now you say that we are people who are part of the electromagnetic field. Now, it seems to me that in building and strengthening that field within ourselves, that we would actually have not only just better health, but seem to be more in tune with our spiritual selves.
I think we must be. We have to be. It's like if we exercise our body, which we now know to be the correct thing to do, don't we? And our ancestors were hunter-gatherers, so that's natural to us. Now we know we should exercise our body daily, really, in some way or other, whether it's yoga or running or swimming. And that tunes our body up. But we don't just have a physical body, we have an emotional body, a mental body, and of course a spiritual body. So what about those parts as well? These are tools. These are just tools that I'm teaching for joy, well-being, and abundance. And medical to mystical, bring light into your life, is really about being more of who we really are, accessing those, more of who we are, the best parts, I hope, and our inner resources.
Now, you give exercises in your book about how a person can begin to approach and actually get to where you're suggesting a person should go in medical to mystical. Could you describe a couple of exercises for our listeners?
Yeah, I'd love to. I think I'll just do a very simple one right now. Just imagine, shut your eyes and imagine you're in a shower of light. We've all been in a shower or a waterfall, if you like a natural image, a waterfall of light. It's coming down over your head, obviously, and it's white and it's pristine and it's sparkling and it's very, very pure. And there's something about this light, because it's light rather than water, it's actually going through your whole body. And your whole body is like being washed and cleansed and purified by this fantastic shower or waterfall that's cascading and cleansing over your head, down through your body, it's right into the ground. And it's just so pure and pristine, shimmering, vibrating molecules, cleansing, but also rejuvenating and re-energizing at the same time somehow. And just visualize that image for a few seconds. I like to ask for spiritual help also, whether that's your guides or your angels, or perhaps you believe in God or even the force of nature, power of nature, in doing all this. And I think I felt a lot of light just now. I think you did too. I felt it. A lot of light around now. Did you feel that?
Absolutely.
I can feel it. That's really going to the top right. I just started you off with bringing light down into your body, because it's up there. Now some people call it the central sun, but why not think of our own sun as representative of that, the producer of all the light for our little solar system, and bring down more of that energizing force that we get naturally from our food or through breathing. We get it in prana. As Einstein said, imagination is more important than knowledge. So when you visualize these things, of course our imagination is so strong, it's reality. In the same way that when we get scared or get stressed, our pulse rate will rise at a stressful thought. Whatever we imagine will be real to us. So it is real. So that's a little exercise. Would you like me to teach you another practical one?
Yes, please.
Okay, that was more. That was a light one, but another practical one to get all the qi moving in your body. Chinese medicine, they talk about qi as being the vital energy force. Very simply, you can press 2 acupuncture points called K27, the kidney points, and they're just underneath your collarbone, but near the center of the body. So the inner sides, underneath your collarbone on the inner sides, there's a little notch. And it really is, it's like if you use your middle finger and your thumb, that's the distance apart, that notch. Sometimes it's a tender spot. If it's tender, it means that there's some blocked chi there. Very commonly it is, actually. Massaging that spot quite firmly will immediately, with 2 fingers, get all your meridians running in the correct direction. There's 12 Chinese meridians. Each one's associated with a 2-hour time period. For instance, the spleen meridian is 9 in the morning. And when we get tired or when we get a bit stressed, even having a stressful thought, as I've said, the meridians start to run backwards. They're a little bit like electricity in our body. So they're taking energy to our body. Too little and we don't have enough power and the organs don't get enough energy to work properly. Too much and there's a blowout. You can think of it like that. But when we get tired or stressed, they start to run backwards. They start to flip. And that's why sometimes we just can't finish our work. You know, it's 4 in the afternoon, 5 o'clock. We're really tired. We can't quite get going. And mothers are like this very commonly at this time, just when the children are coming home from school. And they don't know why. They've had energy all day. Suddenly they're tired. This is a very good exercise to do with children who come home from school and have to do homework, to rebalance your system. Even better if you do it with crossed hands. The right hand is on the left collarbone and the left hand is on the right. That will also help right-left brain coordination. You can tell it's 3 in the morning for me because I'm not that coordinated right now. So right-left brain coordination will be enhanced by crossing your wrists. Do you have that spot?
I do.
Right. It's sometimes a little bit tender. So that's your kidney acupuncture point. You see, you can work on your body yourself. If you read this book, you'll find it very simple to work with your own meridians, energize them yourself. Helps with jet lag. There's energy boosting tricks just like this one, because we don't need to give away our power to other people and go to some specialist. We can now do this sort of thing ourselves, whether it's working with our chakras or our meridians or with the energy of our hearts. Would you like to do a heart light exercise?
I was just going to mention, as you were describing the exercises and as we talk about being beings of light, that so many of our spiritual teachers, such as the Dalai Lama, it can be Gandhi, it can be Muhammad, it can be Jesus Christ, but the long linear traditions that they teach consistently the same things. And one of the biggest words that sometimes people know but they don't seem to really practice or you put into practice, and that is compassion, which truly comes from the heart, that the heart can really heal all wounds. But sometimes I believe people just have a difficult time either believing or having access to and trusting that can actually happen.
That's so true, because it sounds like just words that spiritual people say, but there's real science behind this. Our hearts are so powerful. In every beat of the heart, enough energy is used to light a small light bulb. Every single beat, 70 beats a minute. Goodness knows how many minutes every day. And it's got that energy, right? That's light energy. It's light energy, and it's pumping this energy out 5,000 thousands of times more magnetic energy than the brain. Thousands of times, okay? Actually, more electrical energy too, but many times more magnetic energy. The heart truly is the center of our being energetically. And as you know, in the Western world recently, it's been thought that the brain is the center of the being. The brain rules the roost. But in the old days, the Greeks used to talk about and the heart, and the Egyptians certainly did, as being the center of our being. They knew this intuitively. So why not? This is a huge energy force that radiates out in the shape of a torus, and very stable electrical structure around us, about 12 feet, called the biofield. Why not use that energy to tap into? We all need energy, don't we? That's what we like. in different ways. And if you tap into it, you can immediately shape-shift your reality also. I feel that's the skill of life, from going to sadness to happiness, or mentally from frustration or anger to peace, or you want to shift yourself out of negative states into positive. So we need tools to do this.
Okay, so now this is what brings us to your heart exercise.
How did you guess? Okay, so I think you already know how to do this possibly, but for those who don't, put your hands on your heart area, and through your nose. I tend to close my eyes. I get less distracted. I want you to imagine a circuit of heart energy going from, imagine it in any way you like. I tend to, of course, use a white light. But as you breathe in, it's going from your heart up to your neck. And as you breathe out, it's actually going down your arms and back to your heart. Now, this is a real anatomical circuit with nerves. Only recently we've discovered that the heart does send messages anatomically, the nervous system this is, back to the brain. So the heart sends messages back to the nervous system. The brain doesn't just talk to the heart talks to the brain, okay? So we're actually in this case following the light energy from the heart, or going up the nervous system only to the shoulders and the arms, not to the head, in fact. So you're going to the shoulders and the arms, and then as you breathe out, you're breathing that light of the heart back down to the heart. So there's a circuit here, breathing in from the center of your heart up to your neck and shoulders. Breathe out down your arms, back to your hands and your heart. All the time you're re-energizing your heart with your heart energy. Very simple little circuit. Tune in to the feeling under your hands, which might be getting warmer as we do this for longer. It's your own heart. It's the center of your being. And to add to this, we're going to add the emotions of the heart, starting with unconditional love. We can all imagine usually the love for a child that you have. It's a love that doesn't require any return. Whatever that child does, that person does, you're still going to love them. The love for your puppy, your kitten. Just feel that quality as you breathe. It's in your heart and you're breathing it up. Your shoulders and then back down your arms to your heart again. And all the great masters, as you've said, talk about this energy. Muhammad, Buddha, Jesus was the master of compassion. Dalai Lama. Sink into that energy, very pure feeling of unconditional love, and moving on to the next one, which is peace. That's the deepest, deepest sense of peace. Imagine the most peaceful time you've ever had. Maybe in nature you felt truly at peace, quiet and peaceful. You were on your own little island of peace, and even though there's a battle or war going around you, you're still in peace because nothing can affect that deep, deep peace. Third one is compassion that we feel for people in earthquakes and floods, people who have nothing, everything taken away from them. And we're compassionate because we know at one level that we could easily be them. We could be that person given the wrong geographical situation. And at one level we are those people, so we share in their suffering. Because we're all human. And actually we're all made of light. We're all made of the same stuff. And light has no boundaries. So the compassion in oneness, sharing and having compassion for their suffering, connecting to the heart and breathing into the heart. The last one is gratitude. Gratitude for everything we have, a roof over our heads, enough to eat, baby, family, our health. We're quick to complain about the bits that don't work, but how often do we thank the bits that do work? Circulate that emotion and that feeling. And then we move back to the unconditional love. Go back through peace and compassion. So this is a really important exercise, and it will completely change your mood, your emotion, your feeling, which is so important to us all, because how we work and react in life is based on those things.
I think this can be a very important exercise for our listeners. I remember there are times, excuse me, that we come across people who we feel have wronged us, who have actually hurt us, especially emotionally. It could be from a breakup of a relationship to losing a job with someone that may have been a friend of yours and they were your boss too. There's a wide array of emotional traumas that a person could feel a suffering from. And we tend to take, through instinct or even survival, a route that says, I want to punish you in my mind by shutting down, not talking to you, being nasty or discordant toward you. And I remember a friend of mine had said, you need to understand the people who need love the most are the people who deserve it the least. And I thought that's kind of an awesome exercise to be able to do something like that. But you could see how an exercise, for instance, as the one you just described for our listeners, might change the way you see the outcome and the pain that you're suffering, and seeing the person quite differently. As many people have heard Gandhi say, you change the world by changing the way you see it. Now it becomes more powerful to understand exactly what he meant by that.
That's lovely. I didn't know he said that. That's quite beautiful. And so true, because perception is everything. As Marcel Proust said, the real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite quotes. And all we can do in reality is change ourselves. As much as we try to control the world, it's better to try and control yourself, really, isn't it? Change yourself. And it's amazing how the world improves.
So
suddenly,
true.
miraculously, things not just perception, things will change around you. Because in the old days they used to call it giving off positive vibes, but nowadays it's called the law of attraction. And if you do give off a lot of love and heart energy, it's amazing how you attract different circumstances into your life, isn't it? Mm-hmm. I think we've all found that.
It's fascinating because we've had such movies come out as What the Bleep, for instance, or there was the movie The Secret. And in fact, we had the opportunity to have one of the co-directors or producers of The Secret on our program. And he agreed when I had made the statement. I was saying, I like some of the idea of what this was behind The Secret, the idea that you create the world that you experience, which is very true in many ways. But he says, I agree that they focus too much on money. And it seems this day of New Age physics, if you want to call it that, seem to be coming from people that are describing the benefit of just that alone, that you can, through the law of attraction, attract all this abundance. And the underlying receiving of that message is money, to be wealthy. But really the truth is, what we want to attract in abundance are those things that motivate and make us happy to the point where we play, as Jesus even said in his own quote, is that ye shall not enter the kingdom unless you enter as a child. And where we lost that child playful innocence, this could be a way through medical to mystical for a way to have a person navigate themselves back to that point.
Oh, that's true. I I do hope so. There's so many little exercises that people can do in this book that anyone can do, but explained with a scientific background, a lot of it, because that's real. To me, it's real, and I like that personally. And we need tools for joy and abundance. Yes, the wealth is one thing that, of course, people aspire to, but actually, it doesn't make them that happy quite often anyway. And I think it's much more than that. And it's been around for a long time, this idea. It's not New Age that you give up positive vibes, you change your reality by having a loving heart. It's as you say, it's not New Age. It's actually in indigenous cultures and ancient wisdom, a lot of this.
Fascinating. For those of you just tuning in, we're talking with Dr. Susan Jameson. Her book, Medical to Mystical, Bring Light into Your Life. Now, let's talk about how in today's world when books like yours come out and they go up against an established Western ideal of how healing and health really should work according to them, and they dismiss something that this is more like for witch doctors, this is just hokey science, every once in a while somebody comes up with something, but this is the way real things are always done. But if you want to play around with it, you go ahead. What would you say to something like that?
Well, do you know what I think? I think the dinosaurs. I really do. That nowadays they're dinosaurs, and there's less and less of them around. The younger generation have a fresher outlook and a more open outlook. And it's very difficult. It is a new way of thinking, You have to be flexible. So what do I think? I think patients talk for themselves. As a very experienced doctor of many years, patients are spending huge amounts of their own money now. There's an enormous budget in this alternative therapy area, even from vitamins at one end to energy healing at the other end, okay, with a full spectrum of psychology, rolfing, massage, Reiki, acupuncture in the middle. And money talks, and people are spending their own money on it. People are also not happy with the way Western medicine doesn't really cure things. It just treats them for life. we're very big on treatment for life, aren't we, as doctors? And I have patients, of course, on blood pressure drugs and cholesterol drugs, and we keep them all going. We keep them going. Those machines. However, we are treating for life. And supposing you have an allergy or something like this, it's not really very good to think you've got to take antihistamines and stick steroid sprays up your nose the whole life. Some people seem to accept that very readily, but a lot really don't want to, and I personally wouldn't either. So we think, okay, let's look at alternatives to help people. So it's on the medical level, I think that's a bit of a no-brainer, that we're just offering things to help people, and it is strange the way they flock to it, and they all seem to want it, isn't it? In a country like I come from, Britain, where medical services are free to everyone, and family doctor services and very highly qualified doctors, they're still spending tons of money on the other lot. So I think that talks for itself, and I think those doctors know that perfectly well. They don't really, let's be honest, they're very, very busy, of course, with all this stuff we get sent at us as doctors from pharmaceutical companies or whatever. And how much time do they spend studying this? How do you know what you don't know? You don't, unless you actually spend your time studying it. I've been very lucky. I've worked for 20 years with professors of Chinese medicine. I have built up this holistic healthcare practice with, from rolfers to energy healers to acupuncturists in Hong Kong. It's the only one in Asia with Western doctors working with complementary practitioners. And so I've got this experience through living here and then through studying and spending time doing that.
Well, what do you think, in your opinion, Dr. Jameson, will be the new way a doctor's office will look, even in Western medicine, and how their approach will be to healing someone who comes to see them?
I think it's already changing rapidly, and I think in 25 years' time it'll be so different. I really think there'll be a lot more offices like mine, and that these ideas will be embraced. In Medical to Mystical, Bring Light into Your Life, I explain a lot about science and about patients' illnesses in relation to their chakra disorders. Just as an example, So I think things are going to be very different. Already acupuncture is used in every pain clinic in the world, just as an example. 20 years ago, it was thought to be, people were saying to me, but does it really work? And it's like, well, people who say that nowadays, or people who've never heard of naturopathy or homeopathy, I think, gosh, it's a little bit of a limited perception. And only because they don't know about it. They're not uneducated, they're not clothed, just don't even know about it maybe sometimes. So I think things will change. I think you'll walk into a healing center, and I think there'll be all those different things available to you. Massaging and rolfing, we now know that they work on all sorts of different levels, not just, as an example, manipulating muscle tissues to physically relax it, which is what one might think. But we now discover that our DNA releases huge amounts of light, 100,000 photons per second of light. They actually produce and radiate light, or actual DNA. Now that light comes out, and there are tubules in the connective tissue that conduct it, connective tissues between the muscle and the skin. That's exactly what Rolfers work on. And Ida Rolf always said the issues are in the tissues. So in other words, the light somehow gets congested or blocked there. This is fascinating science, I think. Fascinating that we're discovering that is now connecting, why things like that might work. So that's why there would be, I imagine an office with all these options of different therapies to really heal people on their emotional, not just physical levels, because emotional stuff is so important. Almost half the consultations in general practice has some basis in stress and depression and anxiety. Mm-hmm. And a lot of illnesses related to this, and a lot of sick days.
I was just going to mention, and I'm glad you said what you just said, is that most of the time as we have had doctors on our program from different sciences, is they consistently all say 90+% of all illness is directly related to stress. Remove the stress, you don't have any more problems.
It's shocking, isn't it? It's actually shocking how and the emotion. We are beings of emotion, and of course it impacts our physical bodies, because you can't separate the physical from the mental and emotional, and I would say spiritual. So why not have people to work on all those levels?
Now, you are in a situation, especially this day and age, where it's almost as though it's the right timing, or maybe the time just made itself realize that people, as you say, are demanding change just through their own habits. We don't go to a doctor too much anymore and hear him say or guess, this is what I believe is wrong with you, here's my prescription. They're wanting more than that. So it seems that even through their own habit of seeing a doctor, people are really, truly yearning to find self in this universe.
Meaning to their lives and self. In all sorts of different ways. A lot more looking inward, which is, of course, fantastic, not blaming everything outside all the time, even to the extent of saying, oh, it's not my fault, there's this virus going around, and of course it's the pollution, and it's this and it's that. Is blaming external things. As an example, I had this teacher patient, a middle-aged lady, who suddenly started to get throat infections. She'd been on antibiotics twice a month for many months, and she said to me, it's my job. She said, I talk all day, and that's it's my job. And kind of said, well, you've been a teacher all your life, and you never used to get this in the past. So that's really sad to hear. And I said, in the Indian system, we would say that the throat is related to communication. The fifth chakra, the blue throat chakra, would be related to communicating, being assertive. And do you think there's maybe any problems in your life with that? Could that be communication problems with your husband or at work? And she immediately said, being very bright, she said, well, yes, you're right. I have a new headmaster at school. He won't listen to anything I say. I can't communicate. I can't make myself heard. I'm so frustrated. I feel so blocked. And he only arrived 6 months ago. And I just, that was an example of talking about the patient's situation in life. We would say that the throat had blocked energy. The Chinese would say blocked qi. And therefore it was more prone to getting infection. You see what I mean? So you can involve these concepts with the normal patient in the normal situation. And so it's good that people are willing to look at those factors.
Now, what do you think your next book will be about?
Well, at present I'm writing fiction. Actually, I'm writing a fantasy book, which I just love to death, and it's about light. But apart from that, non-fiction, I'm very into spirals and rotation and spin, and the spin of where everything in the universe is in rotation. The chakras are rotating discs of color. We're on a planet that the Earth rotates. The Earth rotates around the Sun and the Milky Way. The whole of the Milky Way is in a giant spiral rotating in the galaxy, in the universe, towards the great attractor in the center. The DNA at the heart of our biology is a spiral rotating. Photons of light, and I'm into light, are released in spirals. Light is released in spirals. And I personally am a twirler. I have a Sufi twirling practice. And I believe that in twirling myself, I'm connecting to all those other spins. And I know it does something very beneficial to me. So I write cutting-edge work. Medical to Mystical, Bring Light into Your Life is cutting-edge, a lot of cutting-edge science. And ideas that I certainly have not invented, like chakras and meridians, but brought into a different reality, new paradigm. And this new book will be similar. But I can't tell you much about it because I haven't synthesized it yet.
It hasn't spun out into reality, in other words.
Exactly. It hasn't rotated itself into my brain. Yes.
It's really fascinating when you talk about the fact that the world spins. In fact, many years ago I was talking with an astronomer and astrophysicist about the study of, for instance, the universe, and he was describing galaxies at an astronomers meeting with more than 300 people were part of this club. And it was fascinating to see his big screen presentation on his book, Magnificent Universe. Very beautiful book. And he talked about the different galaxies, and he says, galaxies where you will find life that may mirror ours will be found in what are known as spiral galaxies. He says because those are the most highly ordered galaxies that we know of, including ours, the Milky Way. It's a spiral galaxy. And you take a look at, for instance, what you've just described about spinning and spiraling and turning and twisting, and you go to any carnival, and that's what almost all the rides do. They spin.
And children love it, don't they? And they go on roundabout, and to them, they know how to get themselves into these states. They spin themselves, don't they? They love it.
I know. In fact, as a matter of fact, I remember watching a little, I would guess, 3-year-old one time on the side of the street, just spinning around by holding a lamp post and just going around and around, and then he'd fall down, but he'd smile, he'd get back up, and just kept doing this. And I thought, there it is. There's the answer right there in front of you.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting, this. And how we sit on this Earth that's orbiting the Sun at 30 kilometers a second, and yet we think we're still as well. We have this perception of stillness, but we're moving so fast, which is another interesting one. It's something here, I think, that we have to look at and learn from. So, yeah, we'll get the mysteries in the universe, right? Mysteries in ourselves, our DNA in this spiral, and emitting lights in helixes and emitting photons of light that then travel through our tissues in our body into the outer world. It's rather romantic, don't you think? And they're bidirectional, those photons, so they take in, they're information carriers, so we get information about the world through them back again into our DNA. So our DNA is constantly evolving according to all the stuff we take back in this rotation system.
I think you would agree, Dr. Jameson, is that we're truly moving into interesting times, not just as a species, but as a consciousness itself. I remember so many years ago reading from the philosopher Alan Watts in one of his books where he had several essays, and he believed that even by this time, what you actually see it happening, is that soon enough we will all just become one, if you will, magnetic circuit. We'll all really, truly be connected. And you see people doing that with cell phones all day long, as annoying as it is, but you see the reality of such a thing now.
Well, that's very interesting. Alan Watts, I hadn't heard that, but I totally believe that, because we are all one, and we just seem separate. But it is like, it's like drops of water in the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And, with our light, we're all made of light. We're all made of exactly the same stuff, with rather artificial barriers, only in the same way that, we look at a TV screen and see different people, and it's all one TV screen. It's like, and we are beings of magnetic energy, in fact. So how amazing. He obviously was a bit ahead of his time, I think.
Well, I was surprised because he's from England that you didn't know him.
Well, I've been in Asia for 20 years. Although I travel internationally, I teach, and I love talking about my book. I love doing workshops on this sort of thing. There's so much to talk about. There's the chakras and the meridians and then the science of it. My book starts in ancient Egypt because I discovered that Akhenaten, the Egyptian pharaoh married to the gorgeous Nefertiti, was the first person to develop one religion in our world based on, guess what, one God. It's a religion based on one God, and that God was the light. He chucked out all the other gods of ancient Egypt, forget all the gods. He wanted one God only, which was going to be the light. And he even had no roofs on his temples in the middle of Egypt because he wanted people to directly worship the light from the sun. So this is very, very old stuff that I think is just being rediscovered in our more scientific ways.
Now, isn't that interesting that you bring that up, but yet you take a look at how a lot of our wars through the centuries are a result of religion, and even in the United States, the America's manifest destiny. God has said, this is ours, and you go and you take over a culture, for instance, because you realize there are resources that you want there, and you exploit that. You pretty much kill any kind of imagination, if you will, or lifestyle that these people ever had that was working before you came along and decided, well, no, it's not because you're not embracing this belief. And it seems that we're moving back to that it's taken more than 4,000 years for us to get back to that. Again, as I say, what an interesting time.
Absolutely. 1,300 BC, they were worshipping the light and this oneness and the one God that was, and the sense of oneness at the height and the power of the Egyptian empire. And all great religions have one God, don't they? They just argue about which God. It's really rather silly.
I remember there was an English comedian who used to have a television show I'd catch back in the old Benny Hill days, and he loved doing a lot of religious jokes, and he was talking about how there was an argument between a Catholic priest and a Protestant one. And they were arguing about which God was right, and so the Catholic says to the Protestant, he says, I'm going to go ahead and make you a deal. You go ahead and you teach about God's teachings in your language, and I'll go ahead and teach about God's teachings in his. Now, tell me, could you please, for our listeners, do you have a website people can visit and find out more about medical to mystical and other things?
I do, and it's www.lightinlife.com, but the light-in-life, lightinlife, all hyphenated.com.
Very good. Dr. Susan Jameson, what a pleasure to have someone like you on the program today.
Well, that was fun talking to you. Thank you so much.
You bet. Please, go ahead and give your website out again.
Okay, www.lightinlife.com, all hyphenated, lightinlife.com.
Very good. Dr. Susan Jameson, thank you for joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.
We thank you, the listeners, for joining us. This is the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis, and remember, live your day past halfway.